Hi, thank you for tuning in to a new episode about the Japanese STF uniforms in Unique Airsoft. Before we go further in this video, please hit the bell notification button, subscribe to this channel, and like this video with a thumbs up and not thumbs down. I really appreciate if you go and watch more about the uniforms I'm going to publish in upcoming future for this year and next year. And also, before we go any further, I'm really happy with the last video. More than 1 week time, 300 viewers and 6 likes. For some of you it's not much, but to me it is really progress. So I really know that people like this context. So I'm going to do a video like that and a history lesson uniform. Before we go any further, I want to announce that in my last video, when I'm showing the pattern, the 58 from the Royal Dutch uniform, was also 2 mistakes, but I was also aware of that. Please please read the descriptions down below in the last video, because there is the information that I put there. And this will also used for airsoft. So the M16A1 is my standard assault weapon, but officially the Royal Dutch Army did not use the M16A1 version, but we used the FAL version, and also the jungle boots were incorrect. And they decided to go with the M42 pattern boots, also known as the Parap boots, like used by the 101st Airborne Division and used by the 82nd, just to name a few. Those boots were out of service by 1944, or by the end of Operation Market Garden, and most of the forces were using M43 boots, and thousands were lying around. And many countries after World War II decided we want those boots for our standard army on the ground. So the Royal Dutch Army in 1958 came up with a new uniform with the M42 boots. So we decided we do not replace the webbing equipment, but we will replace the uniform. And this is the uniform that I'm wearing right now, the M58 pattern. That is some difference. Let's go over the webbing equipment itself right now. As you can see here, we have here the British and American pattern of webbing equipment. We had the Brody helmet, but we replaced that or shortly after the war with the M1 helmet, because there were many in stock. And we have also a part of American field bottle, and German field shovel, but we have a different way. I will explain that in a moment. And we have a gas mask pouch. I do not 100% know which country has developed this pattern, but I do think the Canadians or the British. Well, I'm not 100% sure. I'm trying to figure that out. Let's first start about the helmet. As you can see here from the inside, it is still around, developed in World War II. Later on, around in 1970s and 1980s, we totally replaced the materials that we used for the inside helmet for the cheaper materials. But all the equipment inside has been replaced by new scorch, so that this person who will wear this helmet is more comfortable to use it. But as you can see here, we have 2 neck bands, one for the inside helmet and one from the outside helmet. I did like in World War II. I do not 100% know for sure if the Dutch soldiers also did do this, but they do using this to protect the whole helmet from throwing away. But we have also a net all around the helmet itself. If we want to go with nature, we're going to grab something and put it in between, and that is really comfortable to use compared to the Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact using mainly camouflage uniforms, more further advanced compared to other uniforms that we had in the West during the Cold War. 2 British. As you can see, we have 2 British pouch ammunitions, also known as British pouches. But after the war, we decided to use this for the FAL ammunition and M1 Garand. But as you can see, we still have seen a different color inside and outside. That means that the whole webbing equipment, from the pouches, the belt to the back, are all World War II leftovers from World War II. Because there was so much equipment over after World War II, all countries decided to recolor the old patterns from khaki brown all the way to green. It is more practical in nature compared to if you have a different color like here in the inside. So it isn't partly also World War II. But like I said, there's so much stuff was left of World War II, so try to recoloring into olive green with the same as your pattern uniform is a good idea. The field bottle is almost identical to the Americans. We had first a British version, but it was also replaced. Water, you're in the water bottle. If you want to have warm water in the evening, you can use this, of course. It was a good design, but later on in the 1970s we replaced those field bottles to plastic version. It was more friendly somehow and cheaper to produce. Let's go over the field shovel. You're wondering why is it the opposite direction? Because of the mechanized infantry units and also regular infantry soldiers were not happy because we have a wood version like the Germans did. So instead of putting the shovel in a normal direction, we put it a different way. If you go to sit down in a mechanized vehicle to transport to the battlefield, the shovel will be behind the back, in between. And I have talked to some veterans, even I have practiced this in the airsoft field, and it is really useful compared to the opposite way. It does not come in your way, it is just really reliable to do this. And at the same time, if you are in a battle, throw this down and push this all the way down, and you will have, for close quarters combat, a shovel. If you have lost your weapon or your bayonet. This is based off some experience from World War II. But if you can see, we don't have a bayonet here. That's because it is not easy to find. We did use a specialized bayonet for the FAL, but the bayonet are quite rare. I do not exactly know why. Going to the backpack for before we go to the gas mask. The gas of the backpack is also based off the British webbing equipment. It's almost identical to the British webbing equipment, and that I think is why the Royal Dutch Army decided to keep it. And at the same time, I dislike the British pattern for some number of ways during World War II. But when I started to use it, I started to reassess my evaluation. The British pouches are really good for putting your ammunition away. But using the pattern also at the same time for only here on this side brand mags and the other side hand grenades, and nowhere to shuffle your Lee Enfield ammunition, it was not really an advantage during those times. But using for FAL ammunition, that's a whole different story. And also a big advantage is, compared to other countries we're using at that time, we can put this together. If you can see here, it's easy to remove and easy to attach. It will not come off easily. That's on both sides. Oh yeah, almost forgot. If you also can see the different color, silver or gold, it's called copper, and this one is black. That's because the versions are different. During training and combat training, the soldiers were ordered to make them black, and after the training they have to repolish to come back to a brightly colored golden version. But later in the Cold War they decided, let's put it olive black so it will not so easily be seen at the sunlight. So it has been also different. So I let point that out. I'm preferring to use the black paint to go over it, but I'm not 100% sure which paint I must use to give this color. I have to go and investigate that to repolish everything black. But if you can see here is a good example. It has been rusted away over the years. After the introduction of the M58 pattern, also known as the 978 pattern, many of the webbing equipment that you see here will be replaced by a new pattern. I will show you that in a future video. But because of that, the elements came in rain and reusing every time, it goes to rust eventually. But I think it is still strong enough to reuse for at least a few years later. So let's go over the gas mask. As you can see here, I do not exactly know which country have developed this gas mask, but we have two ways to put it on. We can put it over our shoulders. We put it all the way around our waist. It could also be used, but zet maar even pauze. There are also a few other ways. You can put this on your sling all the way here. You can put it in those holes like the other equipment, or you can put it the same way as the British. I do not exactly know why there are three ways to put it, but on the one hand it is also really simple. So let's put it on and you can see how the webbing equipment is. Okay, I put it now. I will put on the gear and how you easily remove everything in an instant. So like I said, I can use this way, but I prefer that much easier way. Put over your shoulders and put on the left way. Because I recommend that you put your bag together already with all webbing equipment with the shovel in between. It will be really difficult to put on the bag with your webbing equipment and then the bag with the shovel. The shovel want to have to do in its own way because of gravity. This is like this, shovel in between. Hold the shovel for just to be careful. Put your belt over the gas mask. Be sure that everything is comfortable. And as you can see already, the shovel is locked in place thanks to the back belt. Now of course the helmet. So as you can see, the webbing equipment is all tied up right now. Also the British webbing pouches are a little bit higher. But that's also because of the gas mask. And I prefer it that way because it is easier to move around. I've used it already a couple times with airsoft, except for the helmet. I'm using a field cap. That's an M58 pattern, so I will show you that in the next video when I have the M58 pattern complete. British webbing pouches, of course, but I did not told you what the gas mask that the Royal Army used, so I'm going to show you now. It's really simple. Just push it the lever up, and you have access to your gas mask. The gas mask, your gas filter. It will hold one gas filter in your backpack. This is an entirely original gas mask, but I will not going to put it on because it can still have some toxic chemical in the gas mask itself. This is a totally original version. You can put it, you will put it right in front of you, and you will look. It is almost the same as a German gas mask. But the German did not use this model. Like I said, I will not putting this on because it is really dangerous. If it is a reproduction, there's a whole different story. According to the information that I have right here, it's from 1969. So I think it is later based off the German or British or Canadian. I do not exactly know which country they produced. Be sure it is all the way back if you don't use it anymore. But so were those days. Because the Cold War sometimes were high attention, especially in the 1950s and the early 1960s, every army in Europe was prepared to fight. And even the Royal Dutch Army was in some ways ill prepared But the Royal Dutch Army was prepared in a number of ways that some people disregarded in those times. The whole Dutch Army had tremendously high levels of, were really prepared for a war, but more for a defensive posture, because we have a small country and a small industry. But we did have enough weapons, enough uniforms and helmets to provide many soldiers as possible for training. Of course, the boots are not correct, but in the next video I will show you that the right boots are still in use all the way until the end of the Cold War. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you next time in a new video in the near future. See you next time.